Thunderbolt at Luna Park is one of the more interesting rides I've been on. This is a prototype for Zamperla's Thunderbolt model, which is a similar ride to the Gerstlauer Eurofighter. Not only is it a prototype, but it's also Zamperla's first large-scale coaster attempt, and it definitely shows. The ride features a very compact layout with intense elements, a vertical lift, and a vertical drop. The stats are pretty decent too. It has a height of 114 feet, a length of 2,234 feet, top speed of 55 miles an hour, and 4 inversions. However, this ride has a terrible reputation of being one of the worst coasters in the entire country. Why? The layout's good, it's not that old of a coaster. But remember how I said this is Zamperla's first large-scale attempt? That's exactly why. They really didn't know how to manufacture tracks at the time, and it also could be the trains, so while the ride and the transitions itself are smooth in terms of how they look and how they were manufactured, the trains do not track it well at all. People were saying that this ride is rough, shaky, painful, the whole 9 yards, and they even said it didn't even have that good of a layout to redeem the roughness. When I first visited Coney Island, due to this ride's reputation, I skipped out on this along with most of the rides. I skipped out on all of the Luna coasters due to not wanting to spend the money on the wristband. However, you can ride this with a wristband, but it can be pay per ride, just like the way Cyclone is. So for my second visit to Coney Island, I decided to ride all the coasters and just get a wristband. So since I'm paying for everything, I may as well take a ride on this. I was really not looking forward to it and was thinking the absolute worst going into it. However, before you even get in line, there is a pretty good benefit. As you walk through the queue right before the station, there's actually a bag check. This is one of the coolest loose article policies ever in my opinion. You hand all of your stuff to an attendant in a booth with cubbies, and then they give you a number. This number is on a little bracelet that you can wear during the ride while you keep your items safe. Also, not to mention, it could be kept in a button or zipper pocket if you are afraid it's going to fly off your wrist. It's a great system, and honestly more parks should use it. However, I can imagine at a much larger park or a chain park, this could be messy. However, since Thunderbolt has a strict no loose article policy and nothing can be in your pockets, this is a really nice feature, especially not having to pay extra for something you're already paying for. When you get up to the station, you'll be assigned one of the 3 rows, and as you board, you realize how weird these trains are. They're similar to the Premier Skyrocket cars, where the trains are very hard to get into. But once you sit down, they aren't that tight and they're kind of comfortable too. The seating setup is 3 by 3. Yup, 3 people per row. The lap bars are strange to say the least. They're hard plastic where the actual lap bar pivots depending on the angle of your legs, along with some straps over your shoulders. To be honest, I thought these lap bars were going to be absolutely terrible and have just as much pain as Skyrush, but they were actually fine. The plastic part is odd choice, but the way the lap bar contours to your legs is a genius idea and it's fairly comfortable. Once you dispatch from the station, you turn to the left and head up a vertical lift. The ride is positioned towards the rest of Brooklyn, so the views aren't too great. And the vertical lift doesn't really allow you to get much of a view anyways, besides straight up to the clouds or maybe off to the side. The drop gives an initial burst of strong ejector airtime, but then sort of just flattens out after the crest, and the train kind of just falls. This isn't really that great of a drop, and you can definitely tell it was Zamperla's first time making a drop like this. The valley heading into the loop has some nice positive G-forces, really slamming you back into your seat. The train slows quite a bit on the top of the loop, giving some great hang time. However, next up is the 0G roll, which is one of the more interesting elements on the ride. A common theme with Thunderbolt on its turns and rolls are an unfortunate shuffle. The train seems to not track correctly at all, as I mentioned before, and the 0G roll has the strongest shuffle during the ride. And I can imagine this is why people often hate on this ride. However, I honestly thought it wasn't that bad and actually made the ride more intense at points. While the train is rotating around the roll, not only are you getting hang time, but you get violent laterals and whip during it thanks to the shuffle. If it was butter smooth, it would just act like a regular 0G roll like on a B&M, where it's smooth and short, has some hang time and a little bit of laterals, but it doesn't have any character to it like this one does. This one felt twice as fast due to the roughness. Next up is an overbank turn, or a Stengel dive, whatever you want to call it. This element doesn't provide much in the force department, and it would have been cool if they made this an airtime hill or an outer bank turn. However, Thunderbolt has a surprise for the next element. RCDV calls this element a dive loop, However, the developers of Planet Coaster have made a similar element in the game and dubbed the element the wraparound corkscrew, which I feel like it describes it pretty well. You get laterals and upside down airtime coming into this element, and then the hang time is then sustained until being slammed back down with great positive G-forces in the valley. The finale on Thunderbolt is one of the craziest on any coaster, with 2 extremely strong ejector airtime hills, a crazy fast corkscrew with tons of laterals, and a faint moment of hang time at the top, and then it finishes out with 1 more ejector airtime hill and another outward banked hill. Once I hit the brakes on Thunderbolt, I realized that this is one of the most overhated rides in the entire country. I like this ride a lot more than I thought I would, and so much so I actually rode it several times over just to make sure I wasn't crazy, or just got one really good ride. Speaking of being able to marathon this, I'll touch on the operations. The ride had absolutely no line, as well as many of the rides in Luna Park when I visited. The ops tend to fill up the train or get as full as possible for dispatching, so it can take a while if the park is dead. Thunderbolt runs only 2 9-seat trains, so 18 seats total for the entire ride. When there were enough people, the crew would send a train out as the previous one rolled into the brakes, but with such little seats and a strange train to board, I can imagine that on busy days, the line could move at a snail's pace, with guests not knowing how to board, and the train just stacking in general for other problems. While a larger park hasn't purchased one of these yet, it looks like the ride can technically run 3 trains with a dual load or a load and unload station setup, which could improve capacity. So overall, for the rating, I'd give Thunderbolt a 7 out of 10. The ride is very intense and has very strong forces of each type. The only downfall is the shuffle and not so great capacity. But if you're visiting Coney Island and are skeptical of riding this ride, give it a try because you might really like it, because I certainly did. As of the recording of this video, Thunderbolt currently sits right outside of my top 50 coasters, and overall is one of the best coasters on the East Coast in my opinion. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed this review of Thunderbolt at Luna Park in Coney Island. If you've ridden any of the Zamperla Thunderbolts, let me know what you think of them, and of course, like and subscribe for more theme park content just like this. Once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.